Some rivalries are built on championships, others on bad blood. But this one was different. Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone weren't just two Hall of Famers on opposite sides of the court. They were two forces of nature destined to clash. One, a defensive maestro who thrived in chaos. The other, a dominant force of precision and power. And when they collided, it wasn't just about basketball. It was about pride, mental warfare, and ultimately, heartbreak. Dennis Rodman was a disruptor in every sense of the word. On the court, he was a rebounding machine, a player who didn't need points to dominate a game. But it wasn't just his defensive genius that made him a nightmare, it was his mind games. Rodman didn't just guard you, he invaded your space, your focus, your sanity. Whispers in the ear, tugging on shorts, the occasional shove that somehow never got called. If Rodman sensed even a flicker of frustration, he'd stalk it like a wildfire. And Karl Malone, he was a perfect target. Karl Malone wasn't just a dominant scorer, he was relentless, a two-time MVP, a machine designed to deliver buckets. But there was one thing he had never been able to deliver, a championship. And every time he got close, one team always stood in the way, the Chicago Bulls. For Malone, 1997 was supposed to be different. Utah had finally broken through to the finals. This was his chance, his moment. Rodman saw that and he ripped it away. From game one, Rodman's strategy was crystal clear: get inside Malone's head by any means necessary. He shadowed Malone everywhere, didn't let him breathe, didn't let him think, didn't let him get comfortable for a second. But it wasn't just defense, it was pure mental warfare. Rodman whispered insults every time Malone caught the ball. If Malone hit a jumper, Rodman would laugh it off, acting like it was luck. If Malone missed, Rodman would mutter something under his breath, just loud enough for Karl to hear. During one timeout, Malone walked back to the bench, visibly agitated. Rodman followed him halfway down the court, laughing the entire time. And Malone, he tried to ignore it, he tried to stay locked in. But Rodman knew he had cracked something. With 9.2 seconds left and the score tied at 82, everything came down to this moment. Every movement, every decision, every ounce of focus mattered. And then, chaos. A loose ball, the whistle blew, foul on Rodman. The United Center erupted in disbelief. Karl Malone, the league MVP, a man who had built his career on power and precision, was stepping to the free throw line with a chance to put Utah ahead. This should have been automatic. This was his moment. Malone had taken more free throws than any player in NBA history. He had made more than anyone else. But free throws aren't just about mechanics, they are about mental toughness. He went through his ritual, bouncing the ball 7 times, whispering something under his breath. A moment of solitude before sealing the game. Except this time, he wasn't alone. And just as Malone prepared to release the shot, Pippen leaned in and delivered a dagger. The mailman don't deliver on Sundays. His hands danced, the shot was short. The ball clanged off the rim. The crowd exploded. He tried to shake it off, took another breath, and went through his routine again. The second shot missed too.
Phil Jackson is thinking about, will it automatically be Michael Jordan?
I think it'll go to Michael Jordan.
And on the next possession, Michael Jordan hit the game winner. The Bulls stole game 1. Malone just stood there, hands on his hips, staring at the rim. How did this happen? That moment stuck with Malone. He tried to act like it didn't, but it did. Rodman saw the hesitation, he knew, and in game 4 he pounced. Fourth quarter, the Bulls had a slim lead. Then Rodman tried another trick, a flop. The refs didn't buy it, no call. Malone stepped right over Rodman's head. Unintentional, yeah right. Rodman jumped up immediately, barking at the ref, and got a technical foul. For a moment, Malone had won something, but the war, that was still Rodman's playground.
7 years, just 0.6 of a second remaining. It's a 4-point lead.
A year later, the same two teams, same stakes, but this time Malone was determined.
A storybook ending. You want to have an opportunity to play the team that beat you last year and won the title. And in this business, sometime you get your wishes. We was able to get our wish, and we're looking forward to it.
He had spent an entire season waiting for revenge. This wasn't just about the championship anymore. This was about erasing the past. But this time, Rodman was fighting more than just the mailman. He was fighting his own body.
The Chicago Bulls tell us that Dennis Rodman suffered torn ligaments, or at least strained ligaments, in his right thumb late in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals against the Pacers.
Doctors weren't optimistic. Playing through it was a risk. But this was Dennis Rodman. Sitting out wasn't an option. This wasn't just any game. This was a thriller that went down to the wire, all the way into overtime. And when the moment demanded a hero, John Stockton answered the call. The Jazz's legendary point guard orchestrated the offense brilliantly, hitting clutch shots and making key plays in overtime. For Stockton, it was another clutch moment in his Hall of Fame career. And for Rodman, it was proof that even injured, he could still disrupt Malone and change the game defensively. The Bulls had lost, but Rodman had sent the message. Injury or not, he wasn't backing down. For the next 3 games, Chicago completely overwhelmed Utah, taking them down one by one, leaving no doubt about who controlled the series and setting the stage for a legendary Game 6. The Jazz had the lead in the final minute of Game 6. Malone had the ball in the post. This was his moment, his chance to rewrite history. He felt Rodman behind him. He wouldn't hesitate. He'd finish the play and seal the game. And just as he made his move, swipe, Jordan stole it, ran down the floor, and moments later ended the series in the most iconic shot of NBA history.
Timeout, Utah. 5.2 seconds left. Michael Jordan running on fumes.
But even after the NBA Finals ended, they still weren't finished, because their battle was about to move to an entirely different arena. Basketball, wrestling, it didn't matter. Rodman and Malone couldn't escape each other. Just weeks after their second finals clash, they took their rivalry to the WCW's Bash at the Beach. Rodman teaming with Hulk Hogan, Malone teaming with Diamond Dallas Page. For one night, the NBA's most heated rivalry turned into a wrestling spectacle. Malone showed surprising athleticism, slamming Rodman to the mat and flexing for the crowd. Rodman, he did what he always did. Played dirty, taunted, got in Malone's head. And in the end, Rodman's team won. Again. It was almost poetic. Regardless of the battlefield, Rodman always found a way to walk away on top. For Karl Malone, the losses to the Bulls defined his career. He was one of the greatest power forwards to ever play the game. But his biggest moments ended in heartbreak. Even years later, Malone never spoke much about Rodman, almost like he didn't want to relive it. Rodman, on the other hand, he loved talking about Malone, about how he got under his skin, about how he knew he had him beat before they even stepped on the floor. And the truth, he wasn't wrong. Rodman didn't just guard Karl Malone, he haunted him.
I don't dislike the guy. I don't hate the guy. I respect that he goes out there and works his ass off every night, but I don't respect a guy that's that big, cry about a foul that my little baby can hit me with and fall on the ground. I don't respect that. I don't respect a guy like that. You know, I'm 220 pounds. I get hit hard every game, every night, and I don't complain about nothing. I don't, because I know I'm gonna have to go back and do it again. That's not complaining. If you take a clip of Karl Malone in a game, how many times you see Karl Malone will be in his referee's ear? How many times? 90% of the time. 90% of the time, and he's averaging 28 points a game, and he gets every call there is. And you can just barely touch him.
Some rivalries are about talent, others about rings. But this one was about mental warfare. Karl Malone might have been the better player, but Dennis Rodman was the better disruptor. And in the end, that's all that mattered. So, what do you think? Was Malone just unlucky, or did Rodman own him mentally? Let us know in the comments, hit that like button and subscribe for more epic NBA stories. And remember, some battles aren't fought with baskets, they are fought in the mind.